Portrait for a Princess is seen as the best episode in G5 to so many. But what was it about this episode in particular that people seem to love so much? What did this episode do differently that grabbed so many people so well to the point where even those who absolutely hate G5 liked this episode? And why weren't the other episodes able to accomplish the same thing? Well, as someone who absolutely despises this show, I can tell you, it all comes down to one thing: characters. Which actually kinda is more than only one thing, but really it's more than just these characters were done well. It goes deeper than that. What specifically was done to make these characters more well written here than any of the other characters in the rest of the show? Well, let's start off with my favorite thing to talk about: character arcs. Now, real quick definition for those who don't know. A character arc, in basic terms, is how a character changes over time in a story. This is usually done through the character learning some sort of personal life lesson and improving upon themselves based on it. Just think any time that Twilight or her friends learned a lesson of friendship. Character arcs help to make characters more relatable, interesting, have emotional moments, and give the audience something to root for throughout the story. That being the personal growth of the character they are watching. This is one of the reasons so many people are invested in Misty's character, because people can see her arc. People know that it ends with her joining the main cast, and it's one of the few areas in this show where there is a sense of progression. And now, because of that, she is the most well-loved character of G5, and practically everyone at this point is rooting for her reformation. Thing is, I feel like Make Your Mark is often lacking in this area. Sunny and her friends barely do anything to change or grow as characters, and when they do, it often feels forced, rushed, or unfinished. Except for Hitch's arc from the movie, because it was really well done and I miss movie Hitch so much. So what was the arc in this episode? Well, we learned in this episode that when Zip and Pip were fillies, they were very close. But as they got older, they grew further apart. This episode and their arc is all about reestablishing that connection that they lost. That is the sort of thing that can create a relatable, emotional connection between us, the audience, and the characters. Now, just having the characters change over time isn't enough. It needs to be a roller coaster of emotion. And this episode delivers. We see in the very beginning there is a lot of minor bickering between them, which causes them to irritate each other. This then all builds up and escalates to an actual fight between them. It doesn't feel forced, it escalates very naturally, and all of this escalating anger that they have towards each other builds up, erupts, and eventually leads them to a state of sadness that causes the next part of the episode to hit hard. Portrait Day. This song is by far the best in the show, and the reason why is because this one song does more than literally every other song in the entire series combined. It is used to build on the characters as a method of them making up. It ties into the plot perfectly and progresses it forward. It carries emotional weight as the song that Pip has been wanting to sing all day, but Zip has been refusing, so for her to be the one to start the song has so much weight behind it, and it's so good! And by the way, if you like this song, drop a like on the video. And yes, I am asking for a like for something I didn't make. On top of everything I just listed, and this next part might just be my personal opinion, I like the fact that it steps away from the generic pop songs that we keep hearing in G5. So many of the songs that we hear have zero meaning behind them. They have no tie-in to the plot or characters. They're instead just shoved in there for the sake of having a song. The only other exception to this that I can think of beyond the movie is Pip's lullaby for Sparky, which also, interestingly enough, stepped away from the generic pop song that we hear throughout the rest of the show. Now, as good as the song is, it has one problem that bothers me. It's way too short. It's great in every other aspect, but it really needed to be longer. And I know I can already see people typing in the comments, but there is a longer version of the song. You just have to look it up on Spotify where they added a verse. Okay, first off, I should not be required to go searching for more material online for me to get the full experience of an episode. I should be able to watch it and get everything I need in one sitting. And second, let's just say they did add the full version to the episode. You know how much that adds on to the runtime? 8 seconds. That's it. That places the song at just over a minute. It's still not long enough. It's still a good song, don't get me wrong. I just have to wonder how much more I could have enjoyed it if it was a little bit longer. But this episode doesn't just pull itself in the lead for what it did, but also for what it didn't do. G5 is plagued with tons of massive problems that affect pretty much every episode. And yet, this episode managed to minimize the impact of those flaws or even remove them completely. One of the biggest problems in G5 is Sparky Sparkeroni. Most people, even those who enjoy this show, seem to agree that he is the absolute most annoying thing on the planet. And yes, I am aware he has his fan base that consists of like Doc Anubis and 12 other people, most of which I am convinced at this point are all alt accounts from Doc leaving comments on my videos defending Sparky. But if most people don't like him, then most people will also enjoy this episode even more because he doesn't make an appearance. Another thing that this episode did differently was how it used Opaline. Very often, everything Opaline does is a side plot that goes seemingly nowhere. In every single episode, she's just kind of trying something mildly evil then failing. Rinse and repeat. That does still happen in this episode, but the difference is that it isn't its own self-contained side plot that goes literally nowhere. Opaline's actions actually have an impact on the plot. The reason Pip and Zip go searching for the flower is because Opaline had Misty plant it for them. She's the reason Zip and Pip could have their arc in the first place, because their conflict escalates and is resolved only once they are trapped in the cave together. Now, that's not to say that Opaline was used perfectly in this episode. Her plan is kinda dumb and relies way too heavily on characters just happening to act a certain way. I mean, here's her plan. She sends a picture of a flower to Zip and just hopes that she will see it. She then hopes that childhood memories will overtake her to the point where she wants to go get the flower, then hopes that she realizes from the rocks in the picture that it's near the beach, then hopes that they wander into a cave, then hopes that they don't tell anyone where they are going so that no pony comes looking for them so that they can stay trapped in there, then hopes that they can't find a way out. This is not the only problem this episode has. It has a ton of other flaws, but despite that, I can still get some enjoyment out of this episode because those flaws don't affect Zip and Pip's characters. And that's what makes this episode so much stronger than all the others. It's not the jokes, the animation, or the world building. It's the characters and their personal journeys. That's what so much of G5 is missing. Well, I mean, it's missing a lot of other things, but this is a big one. Something I found interesting is that this episode is by far the best episode of G5 because of its characters, but then the very next episode, Ali Khan, if you ask me, was the absolute worst episode in the show because of how it handled Sunny's character. But it could have been absolutely amazing if they made one small change to the episode. And if you want to know what that small change could have been, you can find out in this video right over here.